Good morning, guys. Welcome to Professor Vipin's YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to understand inflation and how inflation is calculated. So, inflation is referred to as the rise in prices of goods and services but the fall in the value of money. Now, you guys would know this because many times you'd hear the older relatives in your family say that when I was studying in 1980, the cost of education itself was so less. Now look at how expensive education has become. Now, what it means is, in terms of economics, is in the 1980s, if I had a 100 rupee note, I can get so many commodities in 1980. Now, with 100 rupees in 2019, I can get these many commodities. So, what has happened here is the 100 rupee note has lost its value compared from 1980 to 2019. Now, this is a great example to understand how inflation works. So, in order to calculate how inflation is measured, we have two methods to go about doing it. One is the wholesale price index, the other one is referred to as the consumer price index. If you are a student in statistics, especially in your 12th, there's a good chance that this would be included in your syllabus. So, for understanding this, wholesale price index is something that is used especially for calculating the prices of goods which manufacturers use for the sake of making final goods. Whereas CPI is the final goods which you and I are going to use for our day-to-day consumption. So wholesale price index, for example, contains inputs such as steel. Consumer price index contains inputs such as fuel. Now, steel is something that the manufacturer would use for day-to-day purposes of making goods. So, steel has got greater value. Whereas, fuel, on the other hand, which we use on a day-to-day basis, is used for calculating consumer price index. Now, the consumer price index is designed to measure the changes over time in the general level of retail prices of selected goods and services the households purchase for the purpose of consumption. Such changes affect the real purchasing power of consumers' income and their welfare. The CPI measures the changes by comparing through time the cost of a fixed basket of commodities. So for the current series of CPI, the base year is taken as 2012. So if you're a student again of stats, you would know that when it comes to considering index numbers, there is a current year and a base year. The current year, of course, is 2019. The base year here is 2012. So what they mean is, let's say, for example, the cost of fuel in 2012 was 60 rupees for a liter of petrol. Now in 2019, the cost of fuel, that is cost of petrol, has come to 75 rupees for a liter. In that case, you would see a positive number, that is, there is an increase in the value of petrol. Now, petrol has a certain weightage. Just like that, there are many inputs that have different weightage. For example, edible oil, milk, all this has different weightage. I consider whether there's an increase in the price or the decrease in price of all these different inputs, and then I finally end up with one value, which we used to say that, okay, inflation is on an increasing trend, inflation is on a decreasing trend. Now, RBI has published the news saying that CPI in January has declined to 2.05%, the fall in food and fuel prices. CPI has 26 commodities. Now, this is split between rural and urban India. The highest weightage is food and beverage, which has 54.18% in rural India and 36.29% in urban India. Fuel has 7.94% in rural India and 5.58% in urban India. Now, when RBI published this information, this was something that made me wonder, how is that possible? How is the cost of fuel in fact so? How is the cost of inflation in general so low? Now, they went on to say that there is also an increase in the industrial production from 2.4% to 0.5% in December. So what they mean is, in, say, for example, in December, the number of units they made was from 100 to 100.05. From in January, however, the industrial output increased from 100 to 102.4. So this is what they mean in this case. Now, all these things made me wonder, how is this really possible? How is that inflation in India is so low? Because I see constant issues where the fuel price in fact goes up. Now you can see here, statistics is something that can be manipulated to work in your favor. For example, fuel is something that has a ridiculously low weightage of just about 7%, or in this case, if you're in urban India, it just has about 5.58%. But you and I, we see that we constantly complain that, okay, fuel prices are going up, LPG prices are going up. Now, even though the prices of fuel might be going up, the weightage that's been assigned to this is very low. So what happens here in this case is the overall impact it will have in my calculation, because the assigned weightage is very low, the overall impact is not going to be much. Whereas if I consider fruits and vegetables, the weightage given to that is 54%. And I've not seen a huge spike in food prices in the recent few weeks and few months. If you remember a few years ago, onion prices had gone up to about 120, 130 rupees a kilo, and that had shot up the inflation rate because of that. Food prices in India, on the other hand, have been very stable, and especially in Karnataka, I can tell you for commodities such as milk, which in the CPI basket has about 7.72% in terms of weightage. Milk prices in Karnataka have been very stable for upwards of a year. The ones, for example, such as tur dal prices, the general cereal prices, have all been very much stable in Karnataka and, of course, throughout the country. Whereas fuel, on the other hand, has seen a big spike. Because fuel has a very low weightage, you do not see it impact the overall inflation, and of course RBI can say that inflation has been there at just about 2%. RBI's target is to keep inflation as just under 4%. Keeping inflation at under 4% has got both its pros and cons. One advantage of this is, the cost of prices in general will be very low. The disadvantage is inflation is there because it helps in a country's growth. What I mean here is any manufacturer cannot cater to goods and to providing all these goods and services to the masses. And if they were to go about providing this, it becomes too expensive for them. So if you're going to keep the prices low, it is going to affect manufacturers and it's going to affect their revenue targets, their growth targets. If they're able to in fact keep increasing the prices, manufacturers tend to do well. If they're able to keep the prices low, consumers tend to be happy. So this becomes that trade-off which makes it difficult for an economy to grow. Remember, as nice as it sounds to say that I will provide all goods and services to everybody, in theory, that as a practice sounds wonderful, but in reality, making that happen is not possible. The more you're able to in fact provide to these people, and if you're able to increase the price, businesses tend to grow. And this is what is going to make a country grow. But if you're able to increase price and make your business grow, that means that inflation is going to start going on an increasing trend. And that is in fact going to hurt customers. So it's very difficult to have that fine line that says this is going to make both manufacturers and consumers happy as well. This is how in fact inflation is measured, and in fact how inflation is in fact impacting an economy. It has both its pros and cons. So anyway, folks, thank you for listening to me. Do like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching Professor Vipin. See you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.